Welcome to the Even Better podcast, where your host, Sinikka Waugh of Your Clear Next Step, brings you exciting content about making communities better by helping people get even better at work.
Today's episode is brought to you by Your Clear Next Step in the Changemaker Certification Program.
Would you like to save time by solving the right problem sooner with a realistic and measurable plan? Reduce overwhelm by finding more sustainably productive ways to work? Improve employee morale by creating more positive workdays from within? Stay competitive by tightening your turn or increasing your agility in adapting to changing customer demands? If you said yes to those things, then we have the solution for you.
Interested in becoming a changemaker? Give us a call at 515-442-0545.
Well, hello, everyone, and welcome back to another edition of the Even Better podcast. This is Sinikka Waugh, your host, and I'm delighted that you decided to join us today. This is part of Your Clear Next Step's ongoing mission to help us all have better workdays so that together we can go co-create better communities. And I am delighted to welcome our guest today, Laura Rotter. Laura, thank you so much for joining us.
So happy to be here, Sinikka.
This is just such a joy. So Laura and I have connected only recently, but had this immediate connection when we connected. And it was a friend of who connected us and said, oh, the two of you should connect. And she was absolutely right. So I'm so grateful for that. We have some similarities in our background, some similarities in our journey, and some similarities in the way that we go about helping others shine and be their best selves and contribute in their best way to their world. Laura is an owner. She's the owner of True Abundance Advisors. So this is financial planning, but it's a financial planning firm that is really heart-centered and value-based. And I just love the way that Laura and I've had a chance to talk about this as she shows up in her organization. She is helping people really show up as their authentic selves and help make sure that their future and their today is reflecting who they are and who they want to be. And it's so beautiful. I love her approach to this. And I can't wait Laura, to have you share a little bit of your story and your journey. Because it's so phenomenal. You've just done some really, really amazing things. We had beginnings of our journey that had some overlap, and then you did some amazing things that I can't even imagine having done. So we'll love to hear some of that story and share that. So tell us, Laura, tell us a little bit about you.
Wow, that's a big, broad question. I am a career changer. I had a close to 30-year career working as an institutional investor on Wall Street. I often look at the career in thirds. My first third, I loved it. It was really interesting work. I had been sort of a nerdy kid in high school and found that I could do work that was intellectually engaging and also financially remunerative. So loved it. The first 10 years, middle 10 years, I am a mother of three children. I was a primary breadwinner. My husband actually became Dr. Mom, but it was a busy household nonetheless. So I feel like I just did what I did for the next 10 years. But then close to 10 years at the end of that particular part of my career, Sinikka, I was pretty miserable. I no longer enjoyed the work. I didn't enjoy the people I was working with. I didn't share their worldview. But I found myself trapped by my things at a big house, at a vacation home, had three kids who were going to be going to college and went to private camp and private schools. And we took fancy vacations. And I really felt unable to walk away. And I do really attribute finding mindfulness practices. I began to practice yoga. I began to meditate, which led to this aha moment, which every time I repeat it, even to myself, it sounds a little weird, but like, oh, I'm not going to get a do-over. Like, this is it. If I spend my week just waiting for the weekend, or getting home from work and then at that point, taking a yoga class or something, then, why don't I think about changing it now? And that was a long process. Again, the last decade of my previous career, I feel like it sort of evolved. And very happy to be at the other end of it. And it's part of the catalyst to eventually, I mean, I did a yoga teacher training and I taught some yoga, but I really felt that I didn't want to throw away a 30-year career of getting comfortable with financial markets, with numbers. And I myself did my own planning work in saying, well, if I really want to change my life, I can't have a large home that costs a lot of money to maintain and heat. I can't have a vacation home. Um, and so I changed my expense structure, if you will, the overhead that I had, so that I didn't have the kind of pressures that I had had before to earn a certain amount of money. And so I felt like I want to help other women, perhaps in a similar position, whether you're facing career change, whether you're facing divorce, any sort of big life transition requires understanding your numbers and then making changes to
Yeah.
align those numbers with your values.
Aligning those numbers with your values. So I want to pause here and just really invite our listeners to to tune in and to really listen. And I'm almost choked up over this because I'm coming through, for those of you who know me and know the season that we're in here at Your Clear Next Step as we're recording this. It's mid-November 2025, and we are doing the hustle again. And we've been so intentional for the last couple of years about being deliberate and being mindful of our time. And this year it's been busy and intentionally so because we had a year of recovery. And man, as I listen to Laura talking about waiting for the weekend and thinking about, well, if I just wait for the weekend, or if I'm just waiting for what's next, what kind of life is that? What kind of life are we living if we are hustling, if we are held captive by, if we are chained by the either the financial pressures that we've created by our lifestyle in the work that we're in, or by the hustle of the work that we've created? Oof, you guys, I need you to listen. Tune in and listen to Laura's story here, my friends, wherever you are in your career, whether you're in the first 10, where you're excited by the hustle and you've got the energy and you're doing it, or whether you're in the middle 10 and you're going through the motions, or whether you're in the later 10 and you're starting to hate it. Listen to Laura's story. My friends, she's here. She has words of wisdom. And whether your path is exactly the same as hers, it likely won't be. Most of us don't get a chance to hang out on Wall Street. Your story won't be the same as hers. But listen to her story. Listen to the words of wisdom that she's going to offer us. Tune in. Tune in. Tune in. Tune in. Be present. Be mindful. Be here. Be here now.
Love that.
Laura, thank you again for being here. Super grateful. So you started, you had, so we're going to talk about career transition because you were intentional in your career. Let's talk about your skills because you were aware of your skills. My recollection was in our pre, like we had a chance to get to know each other, and you did some skills awareness. You've got some skills, some divinely appointed. You've got some skills, and you've used those skills, and you are aware of those skills. Talk us through a little bit about your skill mapping and your skills, and then your awareness of something that shifted.
Well, when I think about my skills, and it's interesting because I am, oh my God, I'm going to briefly mention I'm an astrology person. So I'm thinking about like Virgo, which is a sign that shows that, I'm very detail oriented to a certain extent, right? My previous career was very much spreadsheet oriented.
Yeah.
Um, Having projections for companies. And so I have a real comfort level with working with numbers.
Hmm.
Um, I'm also on, I guess, on the introvert extrovert spectrum. I'm more towards the introverted side, which I do think that a superpower of introverts is the ability to listen.
Mm.
As you just so beautifully put it, Sinikka, to be present with another's story. And So when I look at, how do my two careers parallel each other? Certainly both include numbers,
Mhm.
but just as importantly, both include stories. So again, when I say I was an institutional investor, it meant that I looked at companies. It's not really important what part of their capital structure I invested in. We're all familiar with stocks. I would purchase bonds, but nonetheless, it was a story, right? Like I happened to purchase securities of companies that were having financial problems. So those tended to be industries that were being challenged, whether it's the newspaper industry or the payphone industry was something I looked at. And so the question is, okay, who's running it? Is the management team strong? Can we replace the management team? What's going on in the environment that is impacting them? I mean, they were all stories that the numbers were certainly important. And I've said recently to someone, you could sort of make numbers say anything you want um, to say. And to me, what was the most interesting was the story. And so now what I look at when I do with people as opposed to corporations is also their story. The numbers are important, of course. And what really attracts me to the work is who are you? What do you want your money to do for you? And just as importantly, what's your money story? Do you have a scarcity story? Where did you get it from? It's all the qualitative aspects that that I feel like are the juiciest. And so I say like the numbers are the scaffolding that the story is built upon. And so I really do see parallels between what I did in the past and what I'm doing now, and the skills and the interests that I brought to my work in the past and what I bring to my work now.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And and then you did something specifically about mindfulness. You started paying attention. So I love, Laura, I love the way you've just talked about journeys and stories, and this is one of the places that I immediately felt rapport with you, not the least because we're both Virgos, but also because of the stories, right? I'm a storyteller. I find the journeys and the stories. There are stories in literature. There are stories in business. I was a lit major, and so
That
while
was right, right.
right. That was one of our parallels. And while I may be allergic to numbers, and that's not, I'm not really allergic to numbers. I'm just better with words. And but I look at the stories. There are stories in literature, there are stories in business, and we find the stories there, and then there are stories in people. So I see that parallel. And I love the way you've put that together there for the business that you run now, and the way you facilitate work. You then shared a bit of story about in your own journey, there was a moment where your own emotional intelligence, your own awareness of who you are, um, created a space for you in mindfulness, of self-awareness, of paying attention. You started practicing mindfulness and situational awareness in a really deliberate and intentional way. So let's talk about that and what that looked like for you. Because I think, as I understand your own story and your own journey, that it was that mindfulness that helped you become aware of the fact that you weren't happy, you weren't loving what you were doing, you weren't, as you said in your intro here, that you weren't loving the people, you weren't loving the work, you didn't have a values alignment, you didn't love the people with whom you were like it wasn't filling your cup anymore.
Yeah.
So what did that? How did mindfulness enter into your daily practice? How did that go?
So I'm both going to talk about how it first came into my daily practice and how it is now finding its way into the work I'm doing at True Abundance Advisors. So I started a meditation practice. I think through a yoga teacher training that I did that talked about finding 20 minutes a day to sit. When I first started, and this is probably true for how many people start meditation, it was, I started with the guided meditations. Back in those days, I think somebody gave me CDs and I burnt it onto my, you know, Right, iPod, whatever that, you know, the music that I carried around with me. It was John Kabat-Zinn, who I highly recommend. He's not spiritual. He's based at University of Massachusetts, stress reduction, mindfulness. And so I just listened to tapes, and through that, I ended up. I'm about to actually attend a silent meditation retreat next week, sitting silently. And when you sit silently, if you're a meditator, there ain't no silence. I mean, there's a lot going on in your head. The kind of meditation I practice, it's known as mindfulness meditation, which is that you become a witness and you watch your thoughts. And they might quiet down, but they don't go away because that's not how our brain works. And through sitting, you get to know yourself because we're all so busy and so distracted by our tasks and our buzzes and our social media, and that if you don't make time to sit with yourself, you don't get to hear what I like to refer to as that still small voice that will share things with you. So that's making space to listen to myself. I've recently I'm halfway through a course that I'm so enjoying. It's a coaching course called Holding Space, which really is speaking to I imagine that in the work I do with clients, they're coming to me with money questions, right? People will contact me either because again, there's a big transition. Do I have enough money? So it's always, do I have enough money? Um, or am I invested correctly? Am I making enough money? Um, and I feel like people come to me with those questions, and I get to create a sacred space to ask them broader questions about their values, about their dreams, about their hopes. And so, like, stealthily create a space for those kind of explorations. Not everybody wants those. Those aren't people I'm going to work with. The people I work with are people that really speaks to. And so this course is making me so much more aware that holding silence, not rushing from question to question, speaking more slowly, allowing for pauses, even coming with an intention, let's say an intention before the meeting starts to open my heart, to project love. That has an impact, that we don't only have impact through our words, though of course you and I were both literature majors, we enjoy words, and just the quality of our presence can have an impact on another. And it's something that I've intuitively known, and yet, when I started this work and wanted to, oh, should I color code things by the chakras? I'm making fun. I heard of an advisor that's once did that, but it's like, yes, I meditate, but how do I bring that into my work? And just to recognize, well, I don't have to impose a mindfulness practice on anyone else, but by having it myself, and
Mm.
so allowing that to inform the cadence of my speech, the cadence of our meetings, that in and of itself has an impact.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So I just want to this is another one. I just want to sit with it. Like even as you shared that, your voice slowed down, inviting reflection, inviting intentionality, inviting the pause, which so often in our day-to-day conversations, we're just rushing through. We just rush, 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 transaction, 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 move, 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 on to the next thing. And if in the work that we do, and so often relationship building is the work that we do. It's not an aside. The people stuff doesn't get in the way of the work that we do. It is the work that we do, right? If
Yes.
we can create that cadence of pause, if we can model that example of intentionality, if we can uh, if we can create intentional space in advance for an openness to gratitude, an openness to love, an openness to grace, an openness to whatever it is that we need in that moment, we're modeling it and creating space for others to then do the same.
Yes. And I will say, Sinikka, so often, if we are aware of it, we may take on the other's energy. And certainly in the work I do, there's a lot of anxiety coming at me through the screen. And um, just to be aware that as an empath, I can so easily take on someone else's energy. And so to sort of set my own as I enter the space.
Absolutely. And I would imagine that, especially when people, I think about the things in marriage counseling, they would say, right, the big topics, family and money, faith, family, money, right? These are the big trigger topics. And so when we are talking about finances, people are elevated, people are more anxious. And so if you can bring that calming presence, if you can bring that level of assurance, if you can bring that level of, even if we don't have all of the answers here, we have space to explore the questions. We have space and time to pause and not react, but respond and explore and invite discussion and consider our values rather than just react and transact. Mm.
Yes. And I will say I'm privileged to work with relatively affluent people.
Mm.
So I'll just say, even before the conversation, and that doesn't invalidate others' anxieties and money stories and fears and hopes and dreams. And none of my clients are going to end up tomorrow, with no roof over their head or no food on their plate. So there's a certain level of security that I know my clients have. And, my work is to have them recognize that. And that does not mean telling them because that doesn't make any difference, but putting them in a space where they can recognize it themselves.
Mm. Yeah. Hmm. So as you think about that, let's figure out how this is then transferable to other folks who are in different lines of work, who are in different spaces and have the opportunity to work with with others who are involved in conversations that might not be about money or financial planning or about their financial futures, but might be in other industries. What is transferable about what we were just talking about there?
Well, I think you said it yourself. I think listening is such a valuable gift we can give to another. True, real listening, not listening for, okay, what's the response I want to give? So they'll know I'm smart. So they'll, and so often we are sort of waiting for our ability to respond during a conversation. And so if we can really create the space for active listening, for reflecting back what we've heard before we respond. So many of us are natural fixers, especially, if we run our own service-oriented businesses. Um, if perhaps we might stop and say, are you open to a suggestion? Or,
Mm.
um, you know, I'm doing a lot of work now and in this coaching program, I think coaching in general, we're learning that we want to help our clients come up with their own solutions. Again, at the end of the day, I say, I'm not your daddy. Like, I'm not going to tell you what to do with your money. It's your money. I'm going to make suggestions or I can show you alternatives and decisions you can make. But I want to be your guide, and frankly, all of us. I mean, the one constant we all know is change. I'm going to be a guide in a changing landscape. The minute I give you a financial plan, it's already outdated.
Mm.
Things are going to change. Your life is going to change. The economy is going to change. The market's going to change. I want to be your guide, and it's your money. So, to the extent that I can create a space for them to make the right decisions for themselves, not the right decisions for me.
Right.
I hold different values, I have a different life, but the right decisions for them. And so, can I, through active listening, through reflecting back, and of course, helping clarify the numbers, can I help them make the right decisions for themselves? And so that I think is true for many professions.
Absolutely. You said something else too that I want to go back to because I think that's really profound and really important and transferable in so many spaces. As a business owner, I think it's really important, and as someone who is responsible for their own sales, right? We got to go find our own business. You said something, I think I heard you say that sometimes you encounter people that are not the clients that you're going to work with, and there are people who don't choose that that's not an alignment. And then you sort of let that go, like, oh, and that's okay. This is powerful. And I think it's transferable because there are people who just don't choose to be in our circle. Whether it's our client circle, if we run our own business, they don't choose to be our customers. They're not going to be our customers. It's not a good fit. And it might even be our friend circle as well. Well, can we go there for a minute? How did you find that journey? How did you find that? Because you seemed very comfortable with that as a business owner. How did you get comfortable with that?
I think that's a great question. I do think it evolves over time. So when I'm in business a little under for myself, a little under a decade now, and I would say often when I first started, that I was just happy to work for anyone who would pay me. And that included at the beginning, given my brand, if you will. I live in an expensive area and I would get, probably not exaggerating, like starving yoga teachers. Like I get paid, $20 to teach a yoga class from a couple of people. I live in Westchester County, which has got to be one of the more expensive places to live. I have $60,000 of credit card debt. Can you help me? And I would try to help people. And at the end of the day, that's a lot, I was spending more time, my time was more valuable than that. And it wasn't that interesting because it's addition and subtraction, like, try to spend less than you earn. It's not really rocket science. And so that, of course, starts out that over time you're raising your rates because you realize that your time is valuable. Um, but it's also true that I realized what kind of work I want to do and why I do this work.
Mm,
And so there's very much, I feel like saying a misconception, but there are different kinds of financial advisors. In my previous life, my work was around beating the market, right? Finding the right investment that I thought would outperform, which includes the kind of due diligence that I would never do today. I mean, my work was talking to CEOs and CFOs and competing businesses and projecting like nothing to do with what I do now. And so for me to say I'm going to beat the market by choosing investments, which is what people think that like I have no interest in trying to do that. My interest in terms of investments is keeping fees low, keeping the investments diversified. They're all funds. I never buy individual stocks and attempting to mimic the market. Um, and so my work is understanding what comes in, what goes out, tax efficiency, making sure you're protected with enough insurance. And so the misconception, most people come and like, make me a lot of money. And frankly, I found this quote a number of years ago, and I use it, which is, "I want to help you use your money to make your life, not use your life to make money." And that's a big sea change for people. And I want to work through those kind of conversations, which include money conversations. But when someone comes to me, I am always happy to refer. Either, I now have a pretty high minimum fee. I've been doing this for a while, and I really am very involved in each of my clients. And so I'm happy to refer to advisors I know in my area who charge by the hour, who will be, who will be less expensive than me. Or at the other end, someone who says, here's my money, make it bigger. Don't ask me personal questions about what my values are. It's like I have plenty of people I can refer you to that's the kind of practice they run. That's not the kind of practice I run. If you're not comfortable with touchy-feelies, it's not the right fit.
Yep. And this goes back to your third decade there of working, where you discovered that you weren't loving what you were doing. It was out of alignment with who you are and how you show up, right?
Yes, as I've often said that again. I when I started in the business, which just to date myself, it was the mid '80s, and it was a lot of nerds in high school who found intellectually interesting work and made a lot of money doing it. By the time I left, it had really transitioned to the frat boys in college who
Mm.
were leveraging their relationships to make money. It became about making money. There's nothing wrong with making money, but I thought I thought the work itself was interesting and not, so I saw a lot of taking advantage, and I was ready to go.
Yeah, it wasn't in alignment with your values. But
Yes.
there's something there that I want us to just hold on to. It's that recognition that when the work we are doing is not in alignment with our values. So for you, you had valued intellectually stimulating work. You had valued work that allows you to see and understand and tell stories and connect with people. You had you like I watched our listeners will hear the audio, they won't see the face, but I watched your face sort of scrunch up as you were talking about things that were less than ethical. Like that doesn't that's unsavory to you. That's not meaningful and uplifting. That doesn't cause you to light up. Uh, so as we think about how we have better work days, that recognition, that self-awareness of what am I designed to do? What was I made for? What was I built for? How am I wired, if you will? Is it intellectually stimulating work? Maybe that's you, maybe it's not. Maybe what you do is with your hands. Maybe what you do is with your voice. I don't know. I don't know how you listener, I don't know how you show up, but you do. Listen to how you show up and then recognize if the work that you're doing on a day-to-day basis, is this work now in alignment with how you were created to show up? And if you start to recognize that the day-to-day showing up is not in alignment with who you are supposed to be, it's a wake-up call, right? This is not how we're supposed to spend our work days. We spend way too much time at work. Way too much time at work to be dragged down, to be miserable, to make scrunchy faces with our face about the work that we're doing. Right? It should be uplifting. It should let us be our best selves, and it should let us shine a bright light out into the world.
Yes, and you're also reminding me, Sinica, of I'm sure we've all seen the surveys that say that people will trade off control of their time for money. So I will say, certainly by the end
Mm.
of my career, I was not in control of my time. I had to be on a trading desk at 7 a.m. I now thankfully wake up at 7 a.m. without setting an alarm. It's my internal clock is ready to wake up at 7 a.m., not at 5:30 like I had to before. Um, and I remember I thought to myself, I'm like the highest paid waitress. One of my roles, not my last role, but a role before that was um I was an analyst, so I was doing research, but I wasn't an investor in that role. And so there were salespeople I would talk back to the end investors. And so the salespeople are in charge of my time. I want you to get on a call with this client, and I want you to travel to visit that client, and I want you, like I said, I was a high paid waitress. I just felt like I was at other people's beck and call, and I didn't respect those people. So when you're not in control of your time and it's not something you enjoy doing, I get pains just thinking about it. So that's also part of it for our listeners. Are you in a role where you don't feel like you're a victim of the environment, but instead are in more control of your environment?
In control. Yeah. So fast forward to today. Are there things that you do in particular today to stay centered, to stay grounded, to stay to sustain this idea of I am who I'm supposed to be and I'm in control of my time. My time doesn't control me. Are there practices that you do? How do you maintain this?
Um, Thanks for asking that question. I will say that I have some non-negotiables, which are my morning includes walking my dog,
Mm,
meditating, journaling, and exercising before I even open my email. So that's very important to me. I really try not to violate that time. And as a business owner, speaking to other business owners, I have two assistants. I have a marketing assistant and I have a financial planning assistant. And I'm really trying to delegate more and more to them so that, and I'm not done yet in terms of delegating, so that I can do more of what I enjoy, which is build the relationships and less of, what I would refer to as the scut work. As a control freak, it's hard to do, but I'm getting better at it. As I start to do a task, I'll say, wait, I think you can delegate that task. And try to lay it off to preserve my peace. I will say I'm not so great at the other end. Like they often say, you should bookend your day with sort of I'm not a good at the wind down practice. I'm generally still going through emails and doing things through till about 11 o'clock at night. But I am a good sleeper, so it doesn't seem to impact my sleep. So clearly it's not important to me because I think forever I've said you need a wind down strategy, and
there's
I don't have
there's
one.
no judgment, no judgment here. I I know that if you're looking for one, we recorded a podcast with a guest, Tracy Schuster, and I forget which episode number it was, but it's the Tracy Schuster podcast about a personal productivity system. And I have always been in awe of Tracy and the system that she refers to it as also as a non-negotiable, and hers is at the end of her day, and she protects the last, I think it's 30 minutes of her day, and it is non-negotiable, and she winds down at work and leaves things in this really, as she describes it, I just sat there with my, slack jawed, just listening to her describe this. I would love that. That sounds so lovely. I haven't gotten there yet, but it sounds really really beautiful, and I recommend it to anyone who'll listen. Oh, so, but I love that. So tell us again, to your non-negotiables in the morning, they include, like, you covered the gamut there. You had walking your dog, so caring for something not yourself. You had journaling, you had meditating, you had exercise. So I mean, you're doing all the things. You're centering, you're reflecting, you're physically taking care of your body. You're taking care of something not you. Like you're doing it all before you even check your email, Laura.
And I will say the walking the dog, if we're going to put it in a category, is really getting outside. I
Oh.
love my dog, but that's really what I didn't have. This is a pandemic puppy, so I didn't have a dog until the pandemic. And if I didn't have that walk in the morning, I would be indoors all day at my desk. So I really think it's so nice. Even, I mean, this morning I'm in the New York area. As you said, it's November. It was 30 degrees. I don't think I would have gotten outside, but it was a nice walk. There was sun out. I dressed appropriately. So I think the dog walking has gotten me outside in a way that I wasn't outside before. And I've always been, ever since I think around college age, I've been an exerciser because I'm type A. And I think if I wouldn't exercise, I'd be bouncing off the walls. So again, and probably meditation as well, like really practices for me that slow me down, which is also why the coaching course I'm taking is so helpful. Just
Mm,
reminding me to take deep breaths, to speak more slowly, just slow down.
just slow down. Ah, this is so lovely. So, if we were to, if we were to wrap this up with a bow, is there something that we haven't touched on, something that we haven't hit on that you want to make sure that our listeners hear about your story, or about things that you do, or ways that you help, or about the transition? And I'll just full disclaimer, the thing that I have just admired so much about your journey is the transparency with which you're willing to talk about the changes in your journey, and the awareness that you brought to your own story, to say, wait, I'm going to take hold of my life and I'm going to do something different, and the joy that you found in doing that. And so I treasure your sharing that with us and with our listener. And I give you the sort of the open floor here to share anything else that you want to share as part of that story.
Thank you. I would like to encourage, so many women shy away from understanding their numbers, their financial resources, whether they delegate it to their partner or otherwise just are afraid to look, feel like it's, oh, I never understood numbers. And I personally have been amazed by the stress reduction that comes from clarity, just saying, like, oh, this is what's in the bank. This is what comes in each month, net of taxes, net of my 401k contribution, whatever is important. So this is really what I have each month. And this is what I've committed to. Even if I never get out of bed, I'm paying my electric bill, I'm paying my cell phone, I'm paying my Netflix. And just look at that. Is that what percentage of what's coming in have you already committed to? And this is where the mindfulness work comes in. Don't beat yourself up, or just notice.
Mm.
And so I encourage everyone to have a familiarity with your net worth, which is, your bank account, your brokerage accounts, whatever, and subtracting out your liabilities, whether it's credit card debt, other loans you've taken out, mortgage. So what's your net worth and what's your cash flow? And without that, you're not making informed decisions. And without that, you're not going to have peace. And even if your spouse is doing it or your partner, you should know. You should have pour yourselves a glass of wine once a month, once every 3 months. Sit down and talk about it and understand it. I'm always amazed how, frankly, my own children don't necessarily have an idea. And I, I really think that that's a way of having more peace in your life. Taking responsibility for understanding your financial resources as a backdrop for knowing how much money do you need to earn? Can you take a different job? Can you comfortably divorce? That's the scaffolding to then make decisions for your life. So I
Oh,
encourage everyone to work.
thank you, Laura. And you have a podcast that helps, that provides additional information. Tell us a little bit about your podcast.
So the podcast is called Making Change with Your Money. The podcast is more stories from women
Okay.
um, who have been through a life transition and come through the other end and share advice, some recommendations for what they did that helped them get
Mm.
through it. I find I meet the most interesting women through these conversations. I know that women I've interviewed have gone on to get clients through the podcast, so that makes me feel good. If you're interested in, or you yourself are going through a difficult transition, I know that it can help you through it by knowing that others have been through something similar and come through the other side.
Fantastic. And again, it's called
Making change with your money.
Making Change with Your Money. Thanks, Laura. So this would not be the Even Better podcast if I didn't ask you my trademark question, which is what's making you even better these days?
Hmm. Um, I, I'm gonna answer with something I've said already, but I am so taken with this holding space coaching course. It's from a group called the Center for Transformational Coaching.
Mhm.
And I do tend to be guilty of signing up for too many things, so I am cautioning myself to slow down. It's just an 8-week course, and I've just finished the 5th week. It meets on Tuesdays. Today is a Tuesday, but it is making me interested in perhaps doing more of that work because it is bringing me full circle back to 2016 when I started my firm and said, I'm going to be a yoga teacher for money, and had no idea what that meant. And focused on the financial planning part of that, which has been wonderful. And now I feel like I'm growing my skills to grow the sort of yoga teacher part of that, if you will.
I love that. Oh, thank you. Thank you. Well, Laura, thank you so much for making time to visit with me today and to share your insights with our listeners. I am so grateful for you.
Thank you, Sinikka. This was really lovely.
Absolutely. And to our listeners, thank you so much for tuning in. I'm so delighted to have spent this time with you. And on behalf of all of us here at Your Clear Next Step, I hope the rest of your day is even better.
Thank you for tuning in today. The Even Better podcast will be back with more content soon. But in the meantime, subscribe to our podcast or check out our website at yourclearnextstep.com for more information. See you next episode.